Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, as always, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Matt Alba. Hey, Matt.
Yo.
How are you doing?
Yo, I'm doing good.
That's great, Matt. Here we are, another episode of The Mistake Zone, and I know for this episode we discussed what we were going to talk about, what we were going to explore. I know later on in the roughly next hour, we'll be touching upon some Dicey Dungeons. I actually watched some anime this week, but Matt, gotta scam the audience. It's an anime based on a game I play, so it's going to be a lot less specific anime and more, hey, my relationship with this mixed media franchise. So we're going to talk about some Arknights, possibly in the back half. But Matt, you and I partook in a celebration this week, a week-long celebration, so to say, that really kicked off for the last 3 days. Guys, hope you don't mind for some post-Splatfest Splatoon 3 general discussions, because, Matt, Splatoon is on my mind, and after a week of going ham at Splatoon 3, Matt, I don't think Splatoon 3 is for me anymore.
Yo, Jaren. I think I'm all splatted out.
Okay, so just to kind of review for those who do not partake in the Splatoon-ness of Splatoon 3, Splatfest is, I want to say, their monthly. It's been 2 months since the last Splatfest, but normally it is this monthly kind of celebration, this in-game festival where you choose a team and you essentially compete alongside your teammates to see. It's essentially glorified voting, really.
Yeah.
Where the team with the most wins, the most points, whatever, the most votes, ultimately is the winner of a Splatfest. And for this third go around, this was the first Splatfest I really participated in. I know last time Splatfest came around, it was something I kind of, casually touched. I didn't really get much progress there, didn't get that many super shells by the end of it, didn't really do the ability chunk farming, but Matt, this time around, I donned my Team Fire t-shirt and I went in, Matt, for the last week. I just grinded Turf War, did my drink tickets just so I could scrub my Splatfest tee. So essentially, for some more context, in Splatoon 3, there's these things called ability chunks, which on all your gear, at least clothing-wise, you can have one main passive and up to 3 minor passives, and you can eventually slot in your selective passive if you have enough chunks. So with Splatfest, you are able to grind the chunks, scrub the tea to get the chunks back to you, and then hopefully by the end of it, you have a bunch of chunks to really do or just customize your loadout to your playstyle, really. And Matt, I think it was a few hours ago when I did my last Splatfest match where I realized, wow, I'm grinding to get a better loadout so I can do essentially the same thing, which is be a degenerate in Turf War. And I realized I don't actually like this.
Rip.
And I think my issue with the whole Splatfest is something that we discussed a few weeks ago as well, where during Splatfest, they turn off all ranked matches, which are the anarchy battles, and everyone is essentially forced to play either Turf War or Salmon Run. But if you really want to take part in the Splatfest festivities, you have to play Turf War. And now that I went ham at Splatoon 3 for the last week, I went through the trenches in Turf War. I'm beginning to kind of see where, as a casual player, that the Splatfest formula kind of needs some work, because, Matt, there were literally times where it's not that I expect to win every game I play. That's really unreasonable. But I feel with Splatfest in particular, the fact that there's no ranked, to house all the pro players, And there doesn't seem to be any real matchmaking when it comes to the turf war for Splatfest that I think as a casual player, you're most likely not going to have fun for this entire, or at least the 3 days that Splatfest is active. And yeah, Matt, now that we're done the Pokemon Starters Splatfest, how are you feeling towards Splatoon 3 and I guess the Splatfest formula?
I still like the Splatfest formula, and overall, like I do think that maybe I also went a little bit hard on Splatoon 3 this past, like, I guess, overall week, because I do feel a little burnt out on it, and I think that also might be just because I was also grinding weapon stickers the few weeks prior.
Yes.
So I really haven't been touching too much of my main weapon, where I guess I really got like a bunch of my ranked mode done, but
Right.
I don't know, like Splatoon 3, I think after this I'm going to slow down on it a lot. I definitely have been using Splatoon 3 as my like daily game to, like, I have to go in, get my first win of the day, get my salmon run. Like, what is the first like few wins in salmon run called? Like where you get like the bonuses, the bonus capsules in salmon run.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Just essentially the reward tier, since that resets every day and a half as well. But yeah, that's part of the rotation.
Yeah, like that. Do my like first roll on the gacha, and I don't know. Like I've been having fun with it, but I think that like now I'm probably not gonna try to like hit those every single day. I'm back at like 80 on my catalog, like, and I feel like after the catalog reset, I lost a lot of motivation to play Jaren. I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I don't know if I just like that prize drip, but I think after November's over, I think that's when the catalog resets and they're putting in a new one.
The next season is December 1st, I believe, since the current catalog season ends on November 30th.
Mm-hmm. So like once that's done, I think I'm going to jump back in and start that grind up again. So I think I'm going to be taking a break, but like I think I fully understand like the Splatfest like issues a lot of people are having because there's no ranked mode, and because like I guess all the people who are playing ranked are going to be pushed into Turf War, which is considered the casual mode. Jeremy, were you playing on Pro or were you playing on Open?
So for me, I've been playing on Pro, but once the Tricolor, so essentially towards the end of Splatfest, since there are 3 competing teams, by the end or the final day, it opens up the Tricolor match, which has, a full team of the winning team or of the votes facing off against 2 members of each of the opposing teams. And my issue with that system in particular is it's a unique mode that has a special take on some of the in-game maps as well. And I think just mechanic-wise, it's something that I'm not used to, but at the same time, you're as a defender, as an attacker, you're not guaranteed to get a Tricolor match every time you queue up, and that will force you into an open turf war game if it's unable to connect you to a Tricolor match. I think for me personally, I've only done, I think, 5 Tricolor matches in all. And Matt, I know you were lucky enough to get your 10 win of the attacker badge, but for me, that's also one of the issues where I really just wanted to play the Tricolor match, and if most of the time I'm not getting connected to that, so I'm being put into like the open games, which again is a toss-up where in pro mode it kind of tries to not necessarily matchmake you, but kind of balance the teams in terms of, your team has 1 bow, 2 rollers, and then 1 gun weapon, so the other team will mostly have the same loadout as well. And then correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, the pro playlist doesn't have or doesn't allow you to join up as a 4-man party or to play with your friends. So essentially in theory, you have less of a chance to find a team who has open comms or is openly communicating. But yeah, for me, I think my issue stems from the fact that there are no, traditional ranks where the more you play, you'll get XP to go towards your current rank. But you don't ever derank. You kind of just go up. Even if you lose, you get some XP put towards that rank. And by the end of it, I was ruler +1 and then facing off against, I'm not sure of the range that you play against, but I was fighting other rulers at that point, and you can tell this kind of skill difference between someone like me versus someone who is actually competent at the game. So that's kind of another thing where, again, I'm not expecting to win every game, but at the same time, I'm not expecting, stomps where by like the first minute, I already have the danger tag on my side of the team. By the second minute, we're already locked down in our base. And that happens a lot more often than not, where it's kind of weird to me where normally Turf War in general, I can hover around a 50 to 60% win rate. But the moment Splatfest starts, that win rate tanks to like 30 to 40, which is kind of odd to me. And I could see a lot of people being kind of discouraged about that. So that's kind of where I'm standing, where I would like more structure to the Splatfest. I would like to be able to play Tricolor more when that mode comes up. And it's kind of weird to me, at least, where attackers don't necessarily get that more often, just given how big the player base is in general. But yeah, I think that's my issue, where I'm kind of burnt out because I went ham on it. I was grinding those ability chunks. I didn't get the abilities I really wanted. The ticket rate up system is a lie, of course. But yeah, Matt, I think it's one of those things where I would like a lot more structure. But unless they change something drastically in the next season of Splatoon, I don't think this is going to change anytime soon, where, yeah, I would just like a way for casual people just not to be discouraged about losing badly. Because again, I can take close games. I prefer to have a close games, but like when my team is locked down in their base by, 2/3 of the way in, and then, two of my teammates just quit because they're not having fun. So I think that's where my issues are kind of stemming from as well. Plus, I got a lot more connection issues than I'm also used to. But then again, I'm just playing a lot more, so I can be more open to that as well. But yeah, man, how were you feeling about kind of the games you play? Because as someone who is more competent at the game than myself.
I also did feel, though, that I got a lot more connection issues during Splatfest. I'm guessing just like the amount of people going in is really messing with whatever backend Splatoon is using.
Right.
For me, the Splatfest was like, in terms of like difficulty, the exact same for me. I think I was hovering around at like a 50-60% win rate for the whole thing. And for the Tricolor matches, I was getting in sort of frequently. I think about a third of the time that I queued for a Tricolor match, I got put into a Tricolor match, which is seems to be like a lot higher from what I'm hearing compared to everybody else. Right. Like you were saying, you barely got in. And if I'm going on Reddit and reading people's just like complaints about Splatfest, they were also like not getting into Tricolor that often, or they were just having bad Tricolor matches. I don't think I think I only had one stomp of a Tricolor match, so they were all like mostly okay for me. And I think it's kind of weird. I understand why the Splatoon devs decided to do it, but I think it's kind of weird that the defending team doesn't have a queue for Tricolor. Like,
right.
It just like pushes, if you queue for open as a defending team, you have a chance of getting put into Tricolor, instead of how it is for the attackers, where you have a separate Tricolor queue.
Oh, okay. That's actually pretty odd.
Yeah, I think that's kind of weird. I think they wanted to like force people into doing Tricolor, and they didn't want to like take the chance that, people don't want to do the Tricolor, so that game mode breaks for everybody.
Right.
But like for Tricolor itself, Jaren, like for the matches that you were able to get into, did you like the mode?
Honestly, I would have preferred some sort of introductory tutorial to it, just because, Matt, I didn't know what I was doing in Tricolor. Maybe this is something you can kind of break down for me, but for the most part, since I was kind of confused about what was happening, I just stuck to, I'm just going to try to ink everything and hope for the best. Since, you were attacking with... So essentially we were both on Team Fire, and we were attacking with team grass. So I didn't actually know that how that dynamic works. So I would like try to avoid team grass. If someone was in my crosshairs, I'd try not to shoot at them because I thought we were working together. But that was kind of what I was a bit lost on, especially once the thing spawned in the middle of the map and I wasn't sure what you were supposed to do with that. So Matt, how does Tricolor work, and do you like the Tricolor mode in general?
Okay. I generally like the Tricolor mode. The way that the mode works is that, like you said, there's 3 teams in the game. There's 2 attacking teams comprised of 2 people each, and then there's a defending team that starts in the middle of the map and it's 4 people. The defending team has something called an ultra signal, which shows up in the middle of the map, and that's what the attackers are trying to... They're not necessarily trying to get to it, but like it helps them ink turf.
Okay.
Because what the ultra signal does is that like once you get it, it turns on basically a superpowered version of like the sprinkler, and it just constantly spews ink into the center of the map. And other than like that, it works the exact same as a turf war. Each team is trying to cover as much turf in their ink color, and the winning team is either going to be one of the 2 attackers or it's going to be the defenders. The 2 attackers' ink don't combine, but if one of them wins, the other one also wins.
Yes.
And Jaren, the fact that some people on the attacking team don't get that really pisses me off.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember 2 games like vividly where I was just like inking my own turf, and then a team grass comes in and starts inking like my turf instead of Team Water's turf.
Yeah.
Which is wild, because me losing also would lead to like the other attacking team losing. So we're supposed to both be working on getting rid of specifically Water's turf. And the other thing that also killed me was when I was going for an ultra signal, and if I would get killed by Team Grass.
Yeah.
That also pissed me off, because again, we're supposed to be working. We're essentially one team that has friendly fire on. So I don't know. It really pissed me off when it seemed like people weren't getting that, understanding that concept.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that just has to do with how teachable the mode is, because I don't recall seeing some sort of tutorial for it. And again, it was me also being confused of, okay, I'm going to try to avoid Team Grass. I'm going to only exclusively ink, the blue team. But like you, I would have moments where, oh, okay, Team Grass is killing me, or I'm seeing my partner on the fire team going in the grass section, leaving blue to ink their corners respectively. And yeah, I feel that in theory, I'd like Tricolor a lot more, but it's one of those things where, coupled with the fact that I don't think there's a proper tutorial, or at least, the first time you're able to queue into the match, it doesn't necessarily tell you like the rule dynamics, or, just straight up say, hey, you're working with like Team Grass or Team Fire in this case. But yeah, and it's also the fact that for me personally, plus what I'm seeing other people having issues that they're just not getting the mode, where I don't think you're able to learn it if you're only getting it, at best 30% of the time. Or I know if you're on the attack or the defending team, I've seen people getting it up to 50% of the time, which is nice. But I don't know. I think it's just lack of being able to play it consistently, plus no real solid way to learn what the dynamics of that map are, really creates some frustrating game instances, which for the few games I played, only, there were a handful of those that were, oh, okay, this isn't going great for, both fire and grass. So I think that's something I would like also explore. Just, hey, here's a reminder that this is how this mode works. It's turf war, but try to work together here. So that's kind of how I was feeling about it as well. But Matt, I've been planning a lot about, just having some sort of, proper matchmaking, but maybe this is something that has been kind of tainted to me when I lurk various, Fortnite or Fall Guys, forums or, discussion boards. And, before we move away from Splatoon, I just want to get your thoughts. Do you have any, particular feelings regarding skill-based matchmaking in general? I feel that a lot of multiplayer games are trying to incorporate, their take on skill-based matchmaking. And, for better or for worse, we live in that Twitch highlight era where people just want to be able to solo carry or hard carry or, have those sweet kills and epic gameplay moments. And, having in theory, well implemented skill based matchmaking system really takes away those opportunities to kind of curb stop and show some flair. So Matt, just in general, how do you feel towards skill based matchmaking, and do you partake in any games where that's kind of obvious?
I don't really take part in any games that are where it's that obvious, but I do remember one particular example where a game didn't implement it and it ruined the game for me.
Okay.
Which is I don't know if you remember this game, Jaren. Spellbreak. Do you remember this game?
Yes.
The wizard-based battle royale, I guess. And Jaren, that game did not have any skill-based matchmaking, and it ruined the game for me because Jaren, I think in any game it sucks to be curb stomped, right?
Yes.
And the fact that game did not have skill-based matchmaking and the kind of gap that is created in that sort of game is insane. It is so easy for someone good at that game to run circles around someone who's bad at that game, which I guess applies to any game really. But I don't know, you feel extra helpless in that game because you at all just can't hit them. At least in I don't know, right. Most other FPSs, you'll at least you'll at least see that you did damage to someone. But in a game like Spellbreak, where half of the game is being able to dodge very well, if you're not good at aiming or dodging, you just have a very bad time. So I think that skill-based matchmaking does always should always exist in games. But I also do feel like it's harder to do that in a game like Splatoon because one, Splatoon doesn't have dedicated real roles. The roles that are in Splatoon were basically created by the community, and it's also additionally hard to rank someone's individual skill and put them into a team kind of ranking thing. You can I guess rank someone based on their individual skill and guess if they're going to if the team that you created for them will be have a real 50-50 win rate against the team that they're facing. But yeah, I don't know, in Splatoon I think it's there's a lot of variables that probably aren't accounted for. I actually did really like the pro mode in this turf war for the Splatfest.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they did it last Splatfest, but you are always in a weapon mirror match in pro mode. And I think that that's a pretty decent idea. It takes away anybody's advantage of having just a bad matchup in terms of weapon comps, because you guys are going to be playing with the exact same weapon comps, right? And it just becomes hey, can I beat the guy that's also using my weapon?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that's a step in the right direction for Splatoon. I don't know if that's the only step they need to take, just because I don't know. Certain weapons can fill different roles within what you're trying to do in Splatoon, and just having good weapon synergy in Splatoon is also very important. I don't know if because I think Overwatch had a decent system, and even League of Legends has a decent system for this too, where I believe this is correct, but you have a queue for a specific role type, and then you also get a certain skill-based MMR based on you playing support, based on you playing jungle, based on you being a tank or whatever, which I think is probably one of the better ways to do skill-based matchmaking in a team game where not everybody is doing the exact same thing.
Right.
And I don't know. I think that's really the best system that I can think of for games like this. I don't know if you can think of a better one or not, Jaren.
No, not necessarily. Mostly just because I'm not. Before we get into the kind of the Splatoon stuff, I think in general with skill-based matchmaking, I'm one of those players that likes to see where the breaking point is, just because of course, I see nothing wrong with skill-based matchmaking. In theory, if it works well, you should be able to play, against people roughly your same skill level, have really close matches, and again, I think it's one of those things where, for me personally, say if I'm picking up a fighting game, I'll try to join like a, hey, we're like a beginner community. Hey, we're learning the games. Let's, play together. And it's those types of matches where maybe it's a mental thing of, okay, we're both, learning stuff. We're both trying stuff out. And if you're able to translate that into, say a shooting game, whether it be a Fortnite, an Apex, Splatoon, Overwatch, that, okay, it might be this mental thing of, okay, I'm in theory playing with people of my certain skills. Let's see what I can learn from here, what we can learn from one another, as opposed to, oh, I just got curb stomped. I'm not learning anything because I'm not staying alive long enough to actually try in something. So I think in theory, that is something that I think a lot of multiplayer games should strive towards, despite, what people say about being able to showcase their skills. But it's one of those things, again, where at one point from some of the games I've seen, there's a point where you can end up having such a low, like tanking your MMR to the point where you're essentially just put into bot games. I've seen that happen in Fortnite. I've seen that happen in Fall Guys. And it's one of those things where you kind of start to recognize it, where, oh, as, outrageous as this sounds, oh, this player is moving too, erratically. They're using a particular skin, one of the, these are not necessarily default skins, but these are really, dated skins that no one actually uses unless you're a bot. So it's one of those things where, Matt, I don't like to admit this, but I'll totally admit this. Say with Fall Guys, you were able to just, re-queue into games over and over again. And if you were to be eliminated the first round, you'd still get XP to put towards your battle pass. And as someone who AFK'd a lot for their battle pass, you end up going into MMR hell where you're essentially just facing bots for the most part. And even with Fortnite, if you lose, often, or say you were to AFK in a tree and you died to the first circle numerous times, you start to get put into those bot games. And I don't think that's a good solution either, just because, again, you're in an environment where you're not really learning anything, or you're potentially learning bad habits that don't really translate to real environment scenarios. And that was just me kind of admitting I exploit MMR to do my dailies or get my battle pass items, Matt. But where I was going with that is when I try to think about Splatoon, even I do agree, I do like the pro weapon loadout mirror matches, but at the same time, I think a lot of, in theory at least, my grievances might disappear a bit if they were allowing you to derank in your Splatfest titles. Once again, that's something that's open to abuse, but for the most part, again, Matt, by the end of Splatfest, I was considered ruler +1, and that's one of the higher titles. And I only got there through brute force, in theory, with a 40% win rate. But, something similar to with Salmon Run, where you're able to, get demoted in your Salmon Run ranking depending on your performance, when you wipe during the 3 waves, how many eggs you're actually collecting. I think if that system was also implemented, in the next season, in the next Splatfest, I think people will be able to find their sweet spot of, in theory, I'm playing competitive games where it isn't total stomps. And sure, again, you can open that to abuse. You can have people AFKing. But in theory, I think that would be at least something I would like them to at least attempt, just to see how the player base reacts to it. Just because, during Splatfest and even last Splatfest, I am kind of accustomed to seeing people post, hey, what's up with the matchmaking here? I know it's non-existent, but I'm not having fun here. So I think that's what I'd like to see them try to explore. But yeah, for the most part, skill-based matchmaking is something like I'd like to see, but I hope there's a more elegant solution to the point of, hey, I'm just tanking so I can play against bots and doing my dailies. Again, that's kind of weird coming from me because I need those bot games just to do my dailies and, cut out for the day. But I think that just tells me I'm playing too many service games, Matt Alba. But yeah, overall, Matt, it was an interesting Splatfest. I don't think Fireteam did too well.
Yeah.
And before we move on, Matt, should we just pick what we think the popular team will be next Splatfest?
Did they say what the next Splatfest is going to be?
No, but just in general, I think we all had a feeling water was going to be the play. But Matt, in our hearts, we were fire boys. But I don't know, Matt. Maybe the grass is greener on the other side, and we should have picked water, or the water is wetter on the other side.
Jaren, I feel like water had such an in-game advantage. I think I mentioned this to you the other day. I don't know if you felt the same way, but I hated facing water in this game, Jaren, because I couldn't see them.
Yes.
Like the neon dark blue blends them in so well, even if they're in their like kid form.
Yeah.
That like I had a hard time like telling where they were. I had to basically just watch ink splotches and guess, hey, there should be someone here. Which I don't know. I think that actually helped me a lot in terms of like, game prediction, but man, that was miserable to play.
Yeah, I'm hoping the colors next time around were a bit more player friendly, but I have to admit, man, I really liked the fire ink and the grass ink. I really liked how vibrant those two got. But yeah, the neon blue ink I wasn't that big of a fan of.
Jaren, I tried turning colorblind mode on and it kept the blue water ink the exact same color, but it changed fire and grass, which is the ones I didn't need changed.
That's rough, Matt. That's rough. But I guess that's the story of Splatfest overall. So Matt.
Jaren?
In between my frustrations with Splatoon, I thought, oh, maybe I should play, Table Turf War or whatever the card game in Splatoon was. But it was one of those things where if I had Splatoon open, I'd feel bad about not participating in Splatfest, not grinding those ability chunks. So I actually, after some bad games, my wind down game for the week would be Dicey Dungeons, mostly because I also picked this up on the Switch. It was on sale, I think a week or two ago for close to $3. And I thought, okay, at that price, it's been a game that I wanted to check out for a while now. It's in the vein of I wouldn't necessarily say it's a card roguelite, but I want to say it's kind of in that, at least that family of roguelite games to come out.
That game feels very board gamey to me.
Yeah, I think that would be more, I guess that's more of a fair way to describe it rather than say in the family of the card roguelite, but it does have board game. Not only does it have a board game aesthetic, so to speak, but yeah, a lot of the different mechanics, since you are dealing with dice, really come into play here. And yeah, I guess it is a board game roguelite to a degree, but Matt, I've put a few hours into Dicey Dungeons. I've unlocked the first 5 classes. So as we said before, this is a roguelite game where you do a run. The premise is you're on Lady Luck's game show. You pick out your contestant who gets turned into a dice. Each die have their own special dice mechanics. And you traverse all these different maps with different enemies to fight through, different kind of attacks and power-ups to collect, and kind of build your deck, so to speak. But where the dice comes in is essentially at the start of your turn, you're given a roll of the die. Depending on the character type, you might have 3, 4, or even unlock different ways to get more die during your turn. And your attacks are kind of, you can choose an attack, and depending on what die you slot into that attack, different things may happen. Different damage might be dealt, or you might unlock a different passive or a different action to go with it. And for the most part, Matt, you start off with the warrior class, and it's a pretty bare bones class pretty self-explanatory, where I can only use the sword attack if I put an odd number of dice there, or if I play a 6 die on this attack, I'll get a bonus like attack afterwards. But then the more you play, the more classes you essentially unlock, and the mechanics get kind of more elaborate to the point where even though I enjoyed, say, the witch and the robot classes, which are unlocked later, when you first unlock those classes, especially when you start off with basic ass warrior, a lot of it does seem overwhelming. And Matt, as someone who's also played Dicey Dungeons, what did you kind of think about the different mechanics when it came to, or the mechanics overall, and each of the different class mechanics as well?
I enjoyed the mechanics. I think that, like, if someone does like this sort of game where you're using your dice to slot them into certain actions, that game I talked about, I can't remember, like 2 weeks ago, Citizen Sleeper?
Yes.
That is basically that game as an RPG.
Okay.
So if people like that mechanic, they should really check out that game. But for Dicey Dungeons, I liked the mechanic. Like, I think one of the things I really appreciated about what Dicey Dungeons was doing is that it didn't make high numbers necessarily good.
Yes.
I think like the fact that, you sometimes want a 1, you sometimes like want a 2, because like, you have gear that like you can slot certain things into. And I think the addition of the way that they decided to do the gear was very good, where you basically have a loadout and that loadout determines like what dice are going to be the most beneficial for you. Like, you can stack things that'll make it like, as long as you're getting high dice, you're good, and you can convert low dice into high dice. Or you can have like a loadout where, every single die roll is at least somewhat useful to you. Like, I overall really, really like the way that Dicey Dungeons set up their gear and their mechanics, which, Jaren, leads me to the thing that made me hate Dicey Dungeons is, Jaren, I don't like the Inventor class. I don't know if you like it or not.
I actually really liked the Inventor class.
Oh, man. I think that it's fair to say that Dicey Dungeons is a very engine-driven game where you're trying to, just build the kind of, like, best engine to constantly feed itself and get itself running until, like, you can just steamroll your enemy.
Yep.
And the fact that Inventor makes you destroy parts of your engine is, I don't know. Like, I understand that you have to change the way that you play for the Inventor class, but the Inventor being one of the later ones and me building habits with everybody else made me I think just like not like the Inventor that much.
Just kind of add context to this, as we said, you unlock different classes in Dicey Dungeons, and each of them have their own mechanics and kind of really play styles. I like the robot just because you're dealing with which item. Isn't it kind of similar to the Inventor class where it's, which item are you sacrificing so you have a souped up version of it your next game? Or, unless that's the Inventor class, but...
I think that's the Inventor class. I think the robot's the one where, like, you have the bar that, like, fills a certain amount.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't like the robot class. My mistake. I like the Inventor class just because I think with that, it was a lot more... Honestly... The Inventor class kind of goes against some of my, sensibilities of when it comes to roguelites where, you are trying to essentially get your perfect build, whether that be something you're really proficient at mechanically or something that's just completely broken. I think having to decide which of your items to kind of trash for the next game, just so you can still keep essentially your go-to loadout, and I think that was a really fun play style that I really like trying to adapt to, because I found myself buying more cards from the shop when it appeared in the levels just because I needed that fodder, but at the same time it's I really like this item or this ability, and I like for this next game I would like to have it souped up, but again it's should I be discarding that or whatnot? And I think something like the Witch I really enjoyed as well, where again, Matt, it speaks to what you were saying, where it doesn't necessarily matter if you have high rolls or low rolls. It's really just up to you what you want to do, where for the witch class, you have 6 different spells at the start of the game, but you have to kind of unlock that spell each time by sacrificing, one of your dice to unlock that spell, and then you're able to use it moving forward in that round. And with the witch in particular, I found myself going to her different spells that have you, I need to add 1 to this dice, or I need to distract 1 from this die just so I can not only unlock that spell or use that spell more efficiently. And I think when it gets really mechanic heavy like that, I was more interested in that. I think when it came to the robot class, I think I became frustrated because it wasn't necessarily mechanics based, but I felt like, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but you had to essentially play a mini game to charge your energy or your mana, and depending on how much mana you charged, you'd be able to use certain gear or whatnot. And I think by the charge mechanic, wasn't that just like holding down A or whatever the corresponding button was, and then just watching it charge up and then letting go right away, or at the sweet spot? I believe that was the robot mechanic. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but like having to do that instantly made me lose all interest in the robot class.
I don't know if that was the robot, or maybe I just never used that thing you're talking about.
Okay.
Because wasn't the robot the one where you basically are playing blackjack, where you can't go over a certain number on your rolls? Like, it's basically a push your luck mechanic, or maybe I'm just misremembering that.
Oh, Matt.
It has been a while since I played.
Maybe I just don't know how to play Dicey Dungeons. But yeah, I think with all the classes, I was able to make it like pretty far on my initial runs with them. But again, with the class of the robot, I just didn't understand what was happening. Maybe it was sort of like a blackjack mechanic, and then maybe I was just forcing different mechanics onto it. But yeah, I didn't enjoy the robot class at all. But this also kind of brings me to my next issue, quote unquote issue, with Dicey Dungeons. And again, Matt, I'm going to say this a lot. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but is there a way? So are there any kind of unlocks or gear settings or just something to give you a sense of progression to bring into future rounds? Or is it just, hey, go into this round blind and, just essentially push your luck?
I don't remember there being one. I think like the closest thing was that like, when you complete a round, you have like more access to different pieces of gear.
Okay.
But I think that like Dicey Dungeons was actually pretty bare in terms of strengthening your character over time.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, I'm not sure how much longer I'll put into Dicey Dungeons, but I think that's what will ultimately get me to stop playing it, just because, again, Matt, it is the essentially carrot being dangled on the stick that makes me love a good roguelite. Just to be able to see the numbers go up, see the different powers come together, and ultimately, for better for worse, Matt, I like the idea of a strengthening system, because eventually, in theory, again, you'll be able to brute force your way through more tough encounters, or it will make reaching the end game a lot more easier. And without kind of that with Dicey Dungeons, like something like that, again, you're kind of putting everything purely on skill and how strategic you are, but at the same time, I need additional carrots to be dangled to me to help. Again, it's the mental thing of me where I'd like to see something, show progress, that I'm actually getting stronger. And if the theory is, you'll just be more strategic, that doesn't appeal to me, to be honest.
No. I need the game to give me skill.
Yes. I have a lot going on, Matt, so I need that sense of progression. But yeah, for the most part, I do like Dicey. I like the look of it. I like the aesthetic. I like the game show vibe. But yeah, at the same time, I wish there was kind of more to it as well. When I think about, all the different, again, it's not a card roguelite, but, just to be able to unlock not only new cards, but strengthen different cards, have your different abilities that can be strengthened too, like little things like that, just to kind of tilt the game towards your favor. I really like and I really enjoy, just because that also gives me something I'm building towards. And I know with something like Vampire Survivors, I don't think we mentioned this during the episode itself, but just to be able to essentially re-roll your passive tree, to be able to build in different ways, like really did a lot for me as well. Really helped me with the replayability, just because, I have enough money, I'm going to re-roll just so I can build towards, damage, or maybe I can build towards additional coin drops for the next few rounds, and something like that I really enjoyed. But yeah, with Dicey Dungeons, I'll go in here and there, but at the same time, it's one of those things where without proper progression, I might not continue with it that far along.
Like, I think for that game in particular, it's kind of hard to give you upgrades just because of how the episode structure kind of works. So, like, I fully understand why there isn't stuff like that in there.
No, yeah, I think from narrative way and how the game is actually, presented to you, and as you said, mechanic wise, it makes sense. It doesn't exist, but at the same time, it's something that I was kind of looking for, and was a bit disappointed that it wasn't there. So Matt, speaking about the episode format, I told you at the beginning of this episode that I watched an anime episode this week. Matt, I watched the first episode of Arknights Prelude to Dawn. This is the anime of the very popular to me at least, mobile game Arknights. For those that don't know, Arknights is a gacha game, but it is a tower defense game. And I've been playing since launch, more or less. I think the game launched early January 3 years ago, and I started playing, I think, 2 weeks after launch. So I've been there practically since the beginning, and just to see how the game has grown. Speaking about roguelites, I think in terms of mobile roguelites, I know Arknights is one of the ones that are celebrated to be a decent, alternative for you to check out without the monetary investment, but just the way the roguelite in general works is it really depends on the units that you've built up in your collection, in your kind of operator list, and you're essentially the stronger ones that you have, they'll be stronger when they come up in the roguelite. But that's neither here or there, Matt. We're talking about the anime. And as I said, I have a special relationship with Arknights. It's something I've been playing since launch. It's been something I've been playing kind of daily too, just because it is pretty easy to, log in, get your dailies out of the way, once you clear a stage, if you get all 3 stars in it, you're able just to auto it. So it's a lot of the times it is log in, do my daily stuff, hit auto, log out. And over the past 3 years, I've been able to kind of amass a really good collection of different units. And again, it's one of those things where, despite being a gacha game, you get a lot of opportunities to unlock different units. It's one of those games where even the 3-star, the 4-star, and some of the free 5-star units that you get are able to carry you, pretty far along the main story, and even the kind of bi-monthly or monthly events that you get as well. Just, go on YouTube, search up, hey, Arknights, low tier or low star operator guide, and then, that will get your creativity flowing as well of how you're going to tackle the stage. But yeah, in terms of a mobile game, I do recommend Arknights. But we're here to kind of talk about the anime. And Matt, I think coming into Prelude to Dawn as a game player, I feel like I'm doing the show like a massive disservice. But before I get to why I think that, the introductory episode hits most of the story beats and kind of gives you the vibes that you get from the introductory levels when you first start, Arknights, the game, for the first time.
Oh, so it follows the game's story.
It follows the main story.
Oh, okay.
And this is where one of my issues will kind of stem from. But let's go back to Prelude to Dawn episode 1. I think there are 3 or 4 episodes out right now as well, but essentially the introductory episode hits all the story beats that, you get when you first start off the game. It was nice to see some of the, story characters that you meet through Arknights, like Amiya, Doberman, and then you see some of the different NPC characters that also you move along with during the game as well, which is, again, that's why I kind of come to the anime, just to see these characters that I'm so accustomed to in the game, to see how they get translated into, this episodic format. And in terms of the story itself, it does mirror the game pretty one-to-one, where, you have a Rhode Island tactical team on a mission to retrieve the Doctor, who is the player insert. What immediately caught me off guard was how young the Doctor sounded in the game. And Matt, before we move on, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on the player insert character within, mixed media franchises like an Arknights. But when you see a player insert being translated onto the screen, or, onto an anime, into a movie, etc., how does that usually make you feel? Do you feel like there's some sort of disconnect? Do you view the anime as part of your kind of gaming experience, or do you see it as, say, a multiverse, quote unquote?
I think it depends on the thing that's getting turned into an anime or like series or whatever, because I feel like it's been a long time since I played Arknights, and also I very loosely paid attention to the story in Arknights, but the Doctor or the character insert in Arknights, you don't really, like, they're mostly a silent protagonist, aren't they?
Yep, silent protagonists. They wear a giant mask, so you don't even know what they look like. So yeah, to see the Doctor, sound really younger, have a male voice, that really threw me off, just because the way the Doctor is presented, and he has all these relationships with all of these kind of older characters. Not only that, he's battle hardened. He has experience leading
okay, I see.
his different armies within battles. And this is something that comes up in the episode where essentially in the beginning of Arknights, you as the Doctor have amnesia when the Rhode Island tactical squad is able to find you. And despite having amnesia, when faced with a certain combat situation, he essentially goes Super Saiyan. All his battle experience comes back to him, and he's able to tactically lead his, the tactical squad around him to victory in this battle scenario, where now it's classic anime. I have amnesia, but I have the experience to help me get through the trials and tribulations in front of me. And I think just the Doctor character being able to recall that experience also threw me off, where in my head for Arknights, I always saw the Doctor character as someone who is, pretty much older. There is a prominent operator in Arknights, Dr. Kalthus, who, again, she has a lot of different she's such a mysterious character. If you were to dig into her operation or operator files and all the kind of lore tidbits, not only does she have some sort of relationship with the Doctor, but it's also, there's some fan theories and fan lore out there based on in-game lore that, maybe she is ageless, maybe she's been around for so and so time, and if she has a relationship with the Doctor, I kind of subscribe that to him as well, where maybe they have some sort of age with him. So yeah, just to see him have such a younger voice in the anime kind of threw me off. But yeah, the episode, it is kind of standard compared to the beginning of the Arknights game. The Doctor has amnesia. The extraction takes place. They're surrounded by Reunion, who is this radicalized, infected rebel group. And when the Rhode Island group goes to save some civilians, the Doctor's battle experience comes to play. He whips out, okay, Matt, this is my chef kiss of the episode, where he whips out his PRTS, which is essentially his AI companion in game. It's essentially his AI assistant that helps him kind of get back into the groove of being part of Rhode Island and kind of leading his tactical squad, whoever he brings into battle. So when he whips that out, they go into the battle. It kind of is reminiscent of a Arknights game where he's saying, okay, phase 1, I need you to do this. Phase 2, I need you to do this. Amiya, you're in phase 3, do your magic. So it's really reminiscent of you doing the tower defense gameplay of, I'm placing a unit here, I'm placing a unit here, I'm doing this. And I thought that was a really cool thing. But Matt, when the battle ends, we hear the PRTS say mission accomplished, just like it does in the game. And Matt slapped my ass.
Jared, I love me some fan service like that.
It's so good.
But watch this now.
But yeah, it's one of those things where after that's all said and done, it really gives you a good view of how kind of miserable the world of Arknights is, where, again, this whole battle comes to a head when they see some civilians that they want to save. They save the civilians, but then they notice that, oh, Amiya, she's an infected. And in the world of Arknights, it is this thing where there is this disease called... oh god, it's now slipping my mind, like oropathy or something like that, where, you know, you have these crystallized rocks in, like, starting to grow from your skin. It's a fatal disease that you only have a certain amount of time to live depending on how severe you have in it. And yeah, Matt, Rhode Island is this, you know, essentially a pharmaceutical company whose sole intention is to try to solve this infection, and not only try to cure it, but, you know, house it, all these different infected and non-infected to kind of work together to this common goal. And just in this first episode alone, you kind of see the dynamics of, oh, there's a lot of discrimination here. There's a lot of, you know, political intrigue in place as well, where I think this is where I'm starting to fall off. Just because, Matt, you know how I feel about, say, prequels and whatnot, where the thing with Arknights is, after consuming it for 3 years now, that, again, it's nice to see all these characters animated, but I have a weird relationship with Arknights, and I have a weird relationship with a lot of the mobile games I play, just because they are essentially visual novels. And you get so many story beats where I've been... Tell me if you heard this before. I've been playing Arknights for 3 years, and we have 3 years of story content where a lot of the times the main story in general isn't that appealing to me. For me personally, I love the different events that they do every couple of weeks, which really allows you to explore different operators or have different side stories that, to me, is a bit more like, every now and then you'll have something that's more easygoing, or it's more it focuses around more interesting characters and gives you backstories to them, where for me, the reason I'll fall off of Arknights is the main story itself doesn't really appeal to me. And when I think of the storylines that I do like in Arknights, it is for these side characters that most likely just be cameos or one-offs in the anime, and their stories will most likely not be explored, because a lot of these side stories are technically prequels to the main stories and show how the operator gets to Rhode Island in the first place. So for main story purposes, like, that's where I'm kind of losing it, just because I don't really want to engage in that content, because I already did. And I think the second thing, Matt, is in terms of Arknights, the game, as the game has come along in the last 3 years, just the amount of text itself that you have to read through grows notably. I think, you know, someone compiled it, but say when it got to chapter 4, that had like 6 times the amount of text chapter 3 had, and even chapter 5 had X amount of times the text that chapter 4 had. So you have all you're essentially reading a novel at this point, hence the visual novel instance of it. But at the same time, that kind of goes against how I play these mobile games, where I just want to go in, do my dailies, spend my stamina, get out of there. And I don't know, Matt, like for me personally, I'm doing the anime a disservice because with the mobile games, the stories eventually became a chore for me, where I was just skipping them just so I can spend my stamina, just so I can kind of grind out the levels and go about my day, where I'm kind of associating that to the anime itself, where it's, I don't want to actually consume this because I just want the gameplay aspect of it, if that makes sense. But for the most part, it was like a nice stroll down memory lane. I think as an anime, if you were an anime only viewer, I think the storyline is like, it is heavy, it can get heavy, and I would be interested just to see how they kind of explore how this disease is really affecting the world around them. But again, at the same time, I feel like Arknights is tainted for me because I just want to play the tower defense portion of it. So that's kind of how I feel towards it. It was a really solid episode, but again, just because I'm so used to the Arknights game, I don't think I'll go back to it other than like a novelty, just because I'm already invested in the game itself. And I think just to end it off here, Matt, I wanted to get how you consume mixed media franchises in general, just because you know me, I love Bang Dream, I love, D4DJ, but again, I like it because of the gameplay aspect. And as much as I like the characters, every week when they give us a new event and I'm not expected, but having to read essentially half an hour's worth of text to get like that event story, I'm kind of just already separating myself. And say a new anime came out, it's, I'm already not ingesting it through the game. I don't really see a point in me consuming the anime itself. But for you, Matt, what's your relationship like with the mixed media franchises?
I honestly don't think I have too much relationships with like mixed media franchises. I feel like for the few that I can think of, I really don't consume like too much of the like additional stuff. Like if I'm focusing, let's say like on this is probably like a bad example, but something like Pokemon. Like I'm in Pokemon to like play that game. Like I don't really care too much about the show. I don't really care too much about the like, I don't know, like books, movies, whatever. Stuff like even just like the like very close like media mix of like manga and anime. Like I don't, if I'm reading a manga, I've already consumed the story and I don't really care to reconsume the story.
Yeah.
I think the only 2 times I can really remember doing something like that is when I watched the Danganronpa anime and then played the Danganronpa game.
Right.
Because I just wanted to see like, how similar those were. And maybe to just like go back a bit earlier, like playing the Persona 4 game and then watching the Persona 4 anime.
Right.
Like I think those were like really the only 2 instances I can think of where I would consume something that I technically already consumed but in a different form.
Yeah.
And and then at least in like the Persona 4 anime, they sort of got rid of the silent protagonist and gave the MC a I think a pretty good personality.
Agreed. Yeah, I think with the Persona 4 example in particular, that was something I really jumped into just because it explored, especially like the Golden anime as well,
the Golden
where
was so good.
It was a lot more of a slice of life. And I think for me personally, if I were to consume, say, an Arknights anime, it would be, the daily life of a Rhode Island operator. And I think that's what I would look forward to, just because, again, like you, Matt, I don't want to retread grounds that I've already, digested in some way. But if you were to give me a fun spin-off, because Matt, as I said before, the world of Arknights is so dark and so grim. And I think that's why when you have a cast or, all these different colorful characters with really unique designs and just, you have a lot of people who, kind of amplify those personality traits. And then that's why I think a lot of fan comics are so popular in the Arknights fandom, or like fan art are depicting like, you know, daily life for them, just because it's a nice contrast to how sad the main story can get, or just how dark it can get. So I think that's what I want to consume of, hey, here's a lighter side of this world, rather than, oh man, everyone really hates the infected. There's all this political war going on. People are using each other. But if you were to give me, oh, hey, all the young operators are trying to learn how to cook, I think that's something that I'm more down for. But yeah, as I said, Matt, I think just given how little free time I may or may have, I think with Arknights, although the one episode I did watch was really fun, I'd rather put that time towards experiencing something new than kind of going back to what I have already consumed. But if you are an anime watcher who has no interest in playing a tower defense game, I do recommend the Arknights game just to see where it goes. And if you do have the time to spare and you are a game player, I think checking out the anime is fun, just because, you know, there were some instances where I saw different operators in the background that, oh, I know, I recognize you, but you were not important enough to actually get story time or like screen time, but it's nice for you to appear. So there are little things like that that stuck out to me as well. But yeah, overall, fun episode, but not something I'll probably go back to. And Matt, we talked about some squids, we talked about some dice, and we talked about Arknights. It has a lot of different animals, but Matt, ending off this semi-beefy episode of the Mistake Zone, I have one more question for you. So Amiya, you know, she in Arknights, she's this rabbit.
Yeah.
She has bunny ears, but she also has human ears. Matt, what do you think of that design choice in general? What do you think about the, you know, humanoid animals that have both human ears and their animal ears?
Okay. Jaren, I feel like it's so important that I never noticed that's there. Cause like, then it brings up too much, biological setup possibilities, and I don't like it. I like if they I fully understand giving an anime character like animal ears, like yeah, cool, whatever, but you need to, I think you need to specifically also give them a hairstyle where you never see like the location where human ears could be,
right?
Because then you can, you know, maybe they're there, maybe they're not, but you don't have to worry about it from a biological standpoint.
Yes, man, Matt, maybe we'll save this for another time, but you know my feelings about how anime, and I guess Arknights is also kind of guilty about this, where, oh, we have this dragon race and the male dragons look like legit lizards, but the lady dragons look like humanoid females with, I don't know, horns or something. So
it's classic anime, Jaren. That's classic anime.
That's classic anime. And Matt, this has been a classic episode of the Mistake Zone. We talked about Splatoon. We talked about roguelites. I rambled for like 10 minutes and I'm not sure what I actually talked to you about. But Matt, set up next week for us. What are we going to discuss?
We're going to talk about the mixed media franchise of Pokemon. Probably.
Most likely. But hopefully, if not, we'll see what happens.
We'll figure it
Matt,
out.
We'll go wherever the mistakes take us. But yeah, Matt, this has been another episode of the Mistake Zone. I'd like to thank you, as always, for joining me this week.
Yo.
I want to thank all our fellow Team Fire for the last Splatfest. Guys, we tried.
We tried.
We tried. I'd like to thank Lady Luck. I'd like to thank Amiya. And I'd also like to thank all our friends out there for joining us once again.
Wait, Jared, they didn't release the Splatfest results yet, did they?
No, I don't believe they did.
Okay. Yo, Jared, maybe. This episode's going to be out after the Splatfest results are probably out, but, you know, right now, in this moment, Jared, maybe.
And Matt, that's all we need.
Maybe. Yeah. Yep.
All we need is some hope, Matt. But Matt, this has been the Mistake Zone for another week, and please take it away.
This has been the Mistake Zone, and Jared, we're all out of hope.
We tried, Team Fire. We tried.